Hi guys, I want to quickly address some points here that I really do think that the times are unfolding as we speak, and this video has portrayed it in a cryptic way. Three hearts, three hurricanes, Florence, Helene or Helena or Helen, and Isaac. Isaac being the smallest, heading off up into the Atlantic. This would be Helene, which would be traveling towards Puerto Rico area, turning into a tropical storm. At least according to the model I looked at earlier. Probably have to look at it again to make sure that's still the same. And then Hurricane Florence, the biggest of them, heading towards the east coast of the United States. The woman's here we've interpreted as 2, 2, 3. We've looked at it as numbers, and we've interpreted those numbers in letters, and we've added them together. We've done many different things, but one way I haven't looked at it is just looking at it for what it purely is tresses or trestles, which are basically curls or snakes, some call them. And then look where her eyes are looking, right at the N and right at the T, the only two letters that are on shown from the hangman on the screen while her eyes are looking there. As soon as the other letters start to become visible, she looks away again, as you'll see now. So from what I'm interpreting that, or from what I'm interpreting, from that, sorry, God, I said it's completely mixed up, is a connection to the three hurricanes that are currently forming at the moment, the snakes in the White House, the New York Times op-ed, because this is Donald Trump going crazy, pointing the finger. Who is it? Who wrote this anonymous op-ed? Suspicion everywhere. Trusting no one. Angry, confused, bitter about the whole thing. But now he starts to tell us about Hurricane Florence. The flames, we've looked at in many different ways as well. Not only does the flame, because it doesn't quite connect here, you can't really see it on this blur that I've stopped it on, but I don't want to try and catch it on another part in case I can't. But this flame forms an N. And in the middle here, you can see the Y. That's New York. 1, 3, 13. New York on the 13th. We know that Hurricane Florence is going to be around New York on the 13th. While this Donald Trump character's head spins round, his head, I believe, is representing the hurricane itself, Hurricane Florence, but his hands are representing what's happening with the waves underneath Hurricane Florence. Some form of underwater explosion or detonation causes the waves to come up outwards that way and outwards that way. The resulting, I don't know what the technical term is, but I'll just call it filling. Basically, when the explosion happens and a large crater is formed, the water that rushes back in is then forming this wave, pushes across towards the east coast. Behind that wave looks like a launch from a submarine. You can't see the submarine. We're represented by the shark behind here. That represents the submarine. The missile launch coming out of there, that could be associated with New York and an EMP type scenario, which is pretty much what I've envisioned from the George Bush body language. It looks like the tsunami comes before the EMP. So the tsunami comes in and the submarine ballistic launched missile is launched behind the tsunami. So it's possible it arrives just before the tsunami hits. Obviously missiles fly faster than tsunamis move. So it could be that the EMP comes, communications go out, and then the tsunami comes in, having both kind of happened around the same time, but the missile flying faster than the tsunami is moving through the water. Then Obama comes. So, oh, sorry, I don't think that's all going to happen on the 13th. It looks like it spreads from the 13th to the 15th. It could possibly happen all on the 13th, but from the other interpretations, it looks like it has a span from the 13th to the 15th, where Hurricane Florence comes in on the 13th, and on the 14th, and on the 15th, we get something and something. Obama comes in. It's interesting that Obama's decided to make a real step out on the world stage again today with his criticism of Donald Trump and the Trump administration, and urging Democrats to go and vote. He hasn't been speaking since he left the presidency. So why now? Why today? Why this time? Why in this timeline? Leading up to 9/11, leading up to Hurricane Florence coming in, and what could be all conveyed in this iPad Goat video. So after that, I think we're shown the same thing that George Bush was showing us with his body language, just in still images. You kind of have to use your imagination a little bit to kind of think about what these people are doing. It's like I don't know, it's like a frozen moment, and you have to guess what the people were doing at the time they were frozen. This one definitely looks like they're watching something. The V could be significant that their arms form, but generally it just looks like they're hands on their chin watching something, and generally that would be TV. So what's on TV on the 10th, which I think this character represents, because this character would represent the 11th, the 8th lunar month, and the 11th lunar day. So then this would be the 12th, and this figure looks pretty downcast, so maybe something political is happening at the same time, or maybe this is people starting to pay attention to Hurricane Florence 3 days before it arrives at New York. And then I think this is where we see Hurricane Florence, because the F seems to wind around and then comes into this figure, which is connected to this one, which I think is related to the EMP or tsunami as well, because actually I think this is related to the tsunami. On the 13th, moving into the 14th, because the circle in the middle is then circled by a lighter kind of blue that symbolizes waves moving outwards. This is the crater that's made in the middle from the underwater explosion. So the 14th is the tsunami, and the 15th, well, that may be an actual land impact nuclear detonation. Either way, between the 13th and the 15th, we've got to look out for Hurricane Florence, and EMP, a tsunami, and a nuclear attack, all appearing to be on the East Coast. I believe the apple rolling 7 times is significant. It rolls over 7 times. We then see 21/8, which brings us to Hawaii, again reinforced by the volcano that's on the apple. For those of you who haven't seen it, you may be watching this kind of information for the first time. Just here, the volcano is represented, erupting with magma coming out. We believe that's connected to Kilauea in Hawaii, because the volcano is on the apple that rolls to Obama's foot. Obama is from Hawaii. When the apple splits open, we see 2 seeds on one side, 1 seed on the other, and we see the number 8 formed in the middle. 21/8 is when Hawaii received statehood. The 8 also represents fissure number 8, because the crack moves right across the middle of the figure number 8. So that would be where this massive eruption comes from. The Helena slump in the east rift zone of the Big Island would be the most likely candidate for a landslide into the ocean, generating a tsunami on the west coast. Now that may or may not take place around the same time as the East Coast scenarios, meaning at the same time as Hurricane Florence and everything that's happening on the 13th, 14th, and 15th. Or it could be that all that happens on the East Coast at that time, and then 7 days later, things transpire on the West Coast. And I think I might know how that could connect, which I'll bring you guys to in a few moments. The V on Obama's forehead brings us to 22, where he's looking worried, and that could be the actual day that Kilauea erupts. So that would be, again, just to reconfirm, the 22nd of September, where Kilauea would erupt like that, generating the tsunami on the west coast. This would obviously be after the east coast has already been affected. And that would be 7 days after, or 7 apple rolls after the 15th. And then we come to the 23rd, which, depending on the time of day, it could be the 22nd in Hawaii and the 23rd on the west coast, because there's I think it's a 3-hour time difference. So, for example, if it was 2 a.m., like we have surmised from the clock and the chimes that I played in the I Pick Goat video, if it was 2 a.m. on the west coast, California, LA area, then it would be, sorry, just lost my maths, 11 p.m. on the 22nd in Hawaii. So that would make sense, and that would connect all together. One thing I didn't realize watching this video, the amount of times that I have, and seeing all the information that we've all shared together, is that when we leave this scene where the flag and the clock tower and the school and everything is, and we come into this little crevice and we're surrounded by the smoke, we're actually crossing over into what I'll term as the upside down. That means that some of the things from this part onwards are actually backwards. So I'll tell you what I basically mean by that in a few seconds when I find my place here. So after we've come into the smoke, and I think that things are playing in reverse, we have the hurricane, and then the Statue of Liberty. Oh, come on. After that, I don't know if you guys can see in the thumbnail, I'm going to have to refresh it, sorry. Un momento, por favor. Not new tab. Refresh. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. My computer has been just acting up for the last couple of days. So I think here we're getting in reverse. So first we see the hurricane approaching New York, something related to the electricity. That could be an EMP, a cyber attack, or a blackout blamed on the hurricane. After that is when the tsunami comes. But in the video, when you're playing it, the tsunami comes first, and then the hurricane and the EMP. In this shot, there's no sign of the hurricane. So I believe that it's reversed from this point, because after the tsunami comes in to New York, that's when we see the oil slow down. And the reason for that oil slowing down is because Iran has come out to block the Straits of Hormuz, taking advantage of the fact that the United States has just been affected by a hurricane, a blackout, and a tsunami. There we see him on the ship again, and then we get back into the smoke. So that scene there is reversed. It's not Iran coming out blocking the Straits of Hormuz and then a tsunami coming and then a hurricane coming. It's a hurricane, tsunami, then Iran coming out and blocking the Straits of Hormuz. Other scenes may or may not be reversed, but I wanted to kind of point out that on the 15th, the same day that I believe there's a nuclear attack on the United States, whether that comes in a tsunami form, EMP form, or a direct attack, that is when we see Israeli planes, because I do believe they're Israel's planes in this video. I have to keep reloading it. Next time I'll use the other video that I've got saved. So we get the one missile come out, and it hits the representation of the mosque with the crescent moon on the top, which could represent Islam, or it could be a direct attack on Iran or Iranian targets in Syria. As we know, things are escalating in Syria as we speak, and who knows what the situation is going to be like at that point. But we have a clear reference to 1 and 5, so 15, and that may or may not be the day that we see, as I said, some form of nuclear attack on the east coast of the United States. But I think they've also given us a way of pinning down a date even more. So they've given us a 15, but 15 of when. It may be that the one made by this structure here and the actual outline made by this structure here is giving us a 1 and an 8. Obviously the whole structure itself also is a man lying face up. You can see the closed eye here, the mouth here. This is also the nose in this representation, and some form of head wound on the right side of his head. And I've interpreted that, and other people as well have interpreted that, to be Donald Trump being shot or assassinated. That could be on the 15th. Again, we have this whole thing unfolding where we've got the 1 and 5. Maybe before, could be after, or maybe not all. But that's not what I wanted to focus on. I just wanted to kind of make sure that you guys are aware of the multiple layers of meaning that they've got in each individual shot of this video. They used 3 planes to shoot 1 missile. That's not by mistake, because if you take the 3 planes, the 1 missile it shoots, and the 5 missiles that come out in response, you have the number 9, 3, 1, and 5. So if you take just the missiles, 1 missile and 5 missiles, you've got 15. If you take the plane the 1 missile comes from and the 5 missiles altogether, you've got 9. And if you take the building structure here and the straight standing structure here, you've got 18. That's 1, 9, 18. That would be, sorry, 1, 5, 9, 18. So that would be the 15th of September 2018, where this attack comes. Maybe in response to or in conjunction with what's happening in the United States. More reference is given to the 15th and things spiraling out of control because of an attack on the United States is drawn from that I believe are Chinese moving to the DMZ, which means they've moved through North Korea. It is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tanks, and the 1 tank having the green light, 1 and 5. So that could definitely be pointing to the 15th, or possibly even the day before with the 1 green light and the 4 red lights. So that'll be the 14th. Either way, both of those days appear to have some significant catastrophic event happening in the United States, or at least on the east coast of the United States around that time. I think that's as far as I really went in the video. A lot of it after that is even more cryptic than the beginning of it. We've done our best over the last year, 2 years, some people even more than that, to kind of unravel this video in the best way that we can, because we do 100% believe that this video is depicting future events, and not because it's predicting future events, it's because they planned these events. So it's not hard to know what's going to happen in the future if you've planned it. Now, considering all that said, everything has to be taken with a grain of salt, because there has been a lot of dates that have not come to pass. But considering everything that's kind of just really ramping up very quickly, the whole thing going on in the White House, the New York op-ed, the way Donald Trump's pointing at everybody saying, who's it, who is it, who is it, is it you? It definitely, I can't stress that enough, it definitely connects to this scene here. New York Times snakes, that's represented by here. The pointing the fingers, the representation of Donald Trump with a D on the hat. And then the hurricane coming after, having New York on one side and the number 13 on the other side, where we know Hurricane Florence is going to reach New York on the 13th. Just the underwater explosion that comes, the tsunami that follows, that would most likely be on the 14th, because this would be the land-based nuclear detonation, which I believe is on the 15th. Obama then comes out and, he's just made his emergence today, conveniently a week before the events are due to take place, according to this interpretation, and maybe according to this video. As I said, if the things do occur the way that I think they may be from this video, it's possible that all this information that we've been researching and all the information that could be available may not be. Because this is not like the first 9/11, where it's just I can't say just but where it's a kind of localized attack. This is going to be much more widespread. We're talking about the entire globe being dragged into a conflict that millions of people aren't ready for, and even more don't know about. So you guys, I've done my best. We've done our best as a community. I think it's just time to really settle down and pray. I'm gonna be spending some time with the Bible, I think, just in these times, because it seems much more real than before. Before it was kind of like I'm interpreting what could potentially happen in the future. Now I'm kind of observing what's happening, and it's connecting to this video. It's no longer kind of interpretation. It's now become observation. You guys have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and may the Heavenly Father bless you.